Hello everyone, and thanks for taking the time and come back to this channel. Thanks so much for all the feedback on the deck comparison list that we did for the Mario deck lists just a couple of weeks ago. Really appreciate all of that feedback and really glad to hear that these videos are helping some of you guys out there. So now I want to do something similar than what I did with KO Underhanded Cheat before, and that is look into the game plan for Arakni Marionette, into some of the key matchups, and then also reviewing a game afterwards that I played against these heroes. And probably one of the toughest matchups right now, and I think that the world's data showed that to some extent, is actually Gravy Bones. I mean, yes, the Gravy Bones representation has declined a little bit over the last coming weeks and months, but it still remains one of the toughest matchups that we can face as Arakni Marionette. So here I'm going to share my personal view on what the game plan is. And yeah, then I would love to discuss with you. Do you see it similarly? Do you have opposing views? What is your approach into Gravy Bones? And yeah, let's take a look at the game plan right away. All right, so into Gravy Bones, I usually want to go first as Arakni Marionette. It has a couple of reasons. First of all, I think that Gravy Bones can actually get a pretty significant advantage if he goes first, as he can do a significant amount of setup, right? Especially if they start with a Crowd of Dominion, if they have a gold, they actually can start cycling through their deck, finding all of their allies, getting them into the graveyard, eventually already developing one or two, and that is definitely what we don't want. As long as the board is clear, that is for us the best option to go face and kill Gravy Bones. The second thing is that as a Arakni Marionette, we can actually send a lot of damage towards Gravy Bones' face in turn 0. I mean, yes, he has a lot of 3-blocks, but he also has a lot of non-blocks, which is the allies. And especially in situations where Gravy Bones does not start with Crown of Dominion, they don't have an option to get rid of these non-blocks in hand. And so very often on turn 0, we can already send quite some damage their way, and eventually also keeping our opponent marked so that we can transform into one of our agents on turn 1. Then obviously over time, Gravy Bones will establish some of the allies on board. And typically the way that I try to play this matchup right now is to go face as much as possible. Gravy Bones only has 40 life, and if Gravy Bones operates on smaller hands, oftentimes these huge blowout turns can't happen. They need a significant amount of resources for their Conqueror of the High Seas, and they need a good amount in order to actually have a functioning, a working engine. And obviously, the fewer cards Gravy Bones has in hand, the less likely it is for them to actually develop a huge gold advantage. And that's also something that can come quite handy in the late game. As long as Gravy is starved on gold, that is a significant, it's an important fact for us. And so I try to ignore most of the allies, to be honest, especially the ones that are really threatening me. Chum, of course, we'll talk about that in a second. Sawbones also is something that I definitely want to get rid of, because on tap, he can deny the mark that I might desperately need in order for my turn to work. But most other allies, if the board is not completely overloaded, I ignore them and I just go face and try to kill Gravy as fast as possible. Now, I already started talking about Chum because Chum is a problem. And probably if Gravy would not have access to Chum, this would be a good matchup for us. But Chum can bring us in positions where it is not for us to decide how we want to operate the turn. With our dagger list, very often we need to play a front pump in order for something to really work out, right? And as soon as we activate anything, he can respond with Chum. And so what you really need to establish is that when Chum is on the board, you need to plan your turn in 2 ways. Well, so of course, sometimes it can make sense to just go straight at Chum and clear him off of the board to not have him as an issue in the upcoming turn. But quite often it's also right to try to go face. But if Gravy Bones activates Chum and make you care about him, that is when you need to have a plan on how to get the Chum off of this board. So yeah, that's definitely something you need to plan for. All right, those are the foundations of my game plan into Gravy Bones, the 3 key essential points. So let's take a look at one of the games right now. So first of all, sorry, somehow the dimension of Talishar changed for me before this game, and so I had a tough time adjusting it at times. But so we were able to go first here, and we do have the option to establish a Graphene Chelicera pretty straight from the beginning. So we want to get rid of one of the Hunter's Claves and then play our Orbweaver Spinneret in order for this turn to work. Okay, so here he blocks with the Saltwort as well. We send our Hunter's Clave, marking our opponent. Now we can play the Orbweaver Spinneret, and we could also think about maybe playing the Cut from the Same Cloth or reacting with the Stains of the Redback to present some more damage here. And so here, opponent doesn't block, and so this is a moment where I then send the Stains of the Redback to ideally deal 7 damage. Maybe Gravy has only non-blocks in hand, or like in this case, they actually do have a Blood in the Water in hand and can already put an ally into graveyard, which unfortunately is a chum. Okay. We are also losing the mark, so not ideal because we don't get to transform into anything. But we have a pump in Arsenal, we have a blue, we have 2 pumps for our Chelicera, which we were able to establish, and we have a Codex of Inertia, which can at times be quite tough for Gravy to deal with if they have one of their weak blues in Arsenal. Or sometimes, like even if it puts an ally into Arsenal, that can be quite tough. So here our opponent operates on the 4-card hand, and they actually decide to only play a Sawbones. And so here we probably want to get rid of that Sawbones, but ideally we want to do that with only like 3 or maybe 4 so that we can, also deal some damage. We get to see their hands, so they have a Conqueror of the High Seas, they have a Fearless Confrontation, so we need to kill Sawbones with at least 4 in order for him to die. And here we go face first. We want to mark our opponent, and now we also want to go face here because I decide I'll try to get rid of the Sawbones either on the next turn because my hand is just too powerful in terms of damage, and ideally we get him as low as possible. So here he takes 9 already. He definitely wants to play his Conqueror, and so we just give it a try with Codex of Inertia. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but we are already 16 life ahead, and ideally we get here a Leave No Witnesses, so now we can clear the Sawbones out. This was probably a little bit of an aggressive play because I could have killed the Sawbones differently, and I mean, there was a very high likelihood of us not getting an attack into Arsenal. But yeah, sometimes you need to play for the upside. And here, because I know that he has a Conch in hand, I definitely don't want to put my Codex, which can be quite powerful, into Arsenal to deny him the gold. Because, also importantly, our opponent does not have a gold, and even here, the chart, the High Seas, fails to hit a gold. And so our opponent can't really cycle. And so here comes the Chum, and also the Conqueror of the High Seas. So it's basically 8 vanilla damage here. I do have the Sink below, which I am okay to use. And the rest of my hand is okay. I mean, I could use the Relentless Pursuit to pitch into Clave and into Chelicera, but I want to try to find something better here. And as such, try to bottom it. It didn't play out that well, I would say, because we only drew into Scar Tissue, and so our hand is not really ideal. I mean, it theoretically could clear the Chum if we need to, but also like playing the Codex into Leave No Witnesses would be nice. Yeah, and so what I'm doing here is I decide to block with a Scar Tissue because it could be quite troublesome for me to get a lot of use out of this. I mean, yes, I have the Tunic resource, so I could pitch into Chelicera, but right now it doesn't have Go again. And so I decide, okay, I go with the Pain in the Backside, try to hit my opponent if he doesn't make me clear Chum. If he discards, then I could see myself pivoting differently and just putting the Codex of Frailty into Arsenal. But here he actually blocks 3 with a Sunken Treasure on the Pain in the Backside, so he's down to 3 cards. And now I still don't want to play the Codex of Frailty because that would allow him to get a Conqueror of the High Seas back into Arsenal. And so, yeah, maybe there would have been a different line that I could have played. And so I decide to use the Tunic resource to just send 1 to Gravy. And he interestingly gives me the gold-plated hook as a block for basically not much value, I would say. And so here I put the codex into Arsenal, find another codex, and all beaver pick up the point and leave no witnesses. And my opponent was able to leverage the Gravy Bones activation now. Still on a 3-card hand. So not too much threatening stuff, I hope. And our hand, I mean, there are options to kill Chum, no question. We can use the Codex of Frailty to pitch. We have starting point available in order to also give something go again. And here our opponent plays a ley line only to play Chum for 6. That's not the best value play. So it seems like we got our opponent here on a weaker hand. And so again, we want to first test the waters and see what our opponent does. So here we pitch the Codex into the Hunter's Clave, attacking Gravy first. We flick the Shilisera because we have another one upcoming. We still have the option to kill Chum if you would activate it afterwards. Otherwise, I guess we'll go face. So here we send the Graphene Shilisera at Gravy Bones, pitching the pick up the point, and that obviously leaves us with a leave no witness that we can leverage afterwards. Our opponent gives us a bit of block here, another Sunken Treasure, so they create another gold, I suppose. Yes, they have used the Codex of Inertia. And so what is a little bit unfortunate in a way, I have the Codex in Arsenal, but I don't really have a good option to get starting point life because I already flicked. And probably that, I probably should have not used the Shilisera flick there. But it is what it is. It would have allowed me to play the Codex. But at the end, he didn't have an Arsenal, so he could have taken the Conch. Not 100% sure would have been the right line here. But now I'm definitely a bit more careful with this. He's coming with a ley line, the Murderous Rebel for 6. And now he can send, for example, the Chum, or maybe he can establish something else. He has a Rigger still in Grave. He's playing another Chart the High Seas. And let's see what he hits. No yellow again, so no gold generation, luckily for me. But he's establishing the Rigor Mortis. He still has the ley line live. That's why I need to scroll around here a little bit. I don't know what happened to the dimensions here on Talishar, but it works now again. So next video will be better. So unfortunately here he plays the Loot the Hold. I would have loved to keep my hand the way it is, but unfortunately I can't. So what I can do is give him 3-block Tunic and the Mask of Deceit. It feels like the right thing to do. We randomly run into Arakni Tarantula, which is nice because our daggers deal more damage. And here again, we want to test the waters because the good thing is if he now activates Chum, there's not much value we lose, right? Yes, we could have attacked with a Graphene Shilisera afterwards, but worst case, we just play to the point and Scar Tissue on the Hunter's Clave, dealing 8 damage in total, while also marking our opponent for next turn. And so he has actually activated Chum, and now we just send our 2 attack reactions. There is a world where I probably should have flicked with the Graphene Shilisera for 2 additional damage. Missed that here in this situation. Obviously, it doesn't make sense for me to play Codex. It would have if I would have a Death Touch in Graveyard. Then I could have cleared the Chum now, and that would have been a good value play. But wasn't meant to be here. So now we have 2 front pumps, 2 blues. So I think there's, and no, still the Codex in Arsenal, right? So there are multiple options we can do here. We're 12 life ahead, so we're okay taking damage, especially with these attacks that are vanilla damage. Because what I could do in theory is to play the front pump, so cut from the same cloth, and then attack with Hunter's Clave, right? If he activates the Chum first, after me playing the cut from the same cloth, I can come with a Hunter's Clave, still 1 resource floating, and can play the knives out to push the dagger to 6. That would clear the Chum, and then I still have the Save a Bloodshed as well as the resource for Graphene Shilisera to pitch and to ideally draw a card. Definitely has go again. And here we see that this actually happens. So yeah, we then use the blue pitch and the knives out to come in for 6. He has a Blood in the Water in hand. But he doesn't have an ally, if I saw it correctly. So he needs to find an ally top deck in order for this to block for 6. But he hasn't used the compass yet, so there's definitely work. But at the end, that will be okay for us as well if he blocks this out. I don't necessarily need to draw a card. But here we come in for 7. So Graphene for 2, and then with the pump for 6, and then knives out for 7. The good thing is it has go again. So we can come in with our Leave No Witnesses right afterwards. He plays the Blood in the Water because he doesn't seem to have an ally on top. He is just blocking for 4. That's why he also put in the Loan Shark. So this is blocked, and we actually get to play the Codex of Frailty. Can attack with the Leave No Witnesses. And so here's one thing. So assuming I hit, because he would need to give me a card and dead threats in order to block this, there is a world where I could flick the Graphene Chelicera now. That would draw me a card. I could then use Starting Point for go again. And if that is an attack action, I could still attack this before the turn ends and before the Ponder resolves. But if this is not an attack action, I think it is just not enough value. And so here I decide against it. In a second, we'll see it would have made sense because we drew into a Kiss of Death. So I could have come in for another 4 damage or clear something like the Rigor Mortis here. But yeah, we did it that way. It's still fine because we draw into another good hand, I would say. We have a blue pitch for Hunter's Clave and Chelicera. We have another Save a Bloodshed. We have a Pick Up the Point in order to either clear something or deal 3 additional damage. And we have the Sink Below in order to prevent some damage here. He just comes in for 6. Yes, he's getting another gold. And I actually decide to not even use the Sink Below to put it into Arsenal, ideally. So yeah, there's a world where with Save a Bloodshed, I draw into something that I can't convert. And so ultimately it, doesn't do anything for me. But it is what it is. We'll find out in a sec. So here's the third Sunken Treasure, so another gold from my opponent. And unfortunately, we're not marking our opponent. So it becomes a little bit tougher for us to get this going. But the good thing is we have a resource floating, and we have the Pick Up the Point. And so what we can do here is we play the Save a Bloodshed, we play the Kiss of Death, it comes in for 7, and we can still bring this up to 8 if we then use the Flick Knives. It would come for 8, we would get go again, we could still play the Pick Up the Point and retrieve the Hunter's Clave, but here my opponent actually plays heads up and gives me the whole hand, and at the end, well, that's okay for me. Means he can't do anything on their turn, they can't generate a resource, so they'll just pass. I still put the Sink Below into Arsenal and see what my hand does for me here. It's okay, I would say. I can use the Exposed to pitch into the Hunter's Clave, flick the Graphene Chelicera, establish a new one with the Yellow Orbweaver Spinneret, and have Pick Up the Point for 3 more attack, and can actually buff the Graphene Chelicera with the Stains of the Redback. So I can convert this quite easily while still keeping the Sink Below in Arsenal. And here my opponent needs to, do something. So here I decided against flicking the Graphene Chelicera because now I want to play it the other way around as my opponent blocked this. So what I want to do now is to play the Orbweaver, attack with the Graphene Chelicera, flick the Flick Knives, flick the Hunter's Clave eventually. So actually not playing the Orbweaver Spinner, but using that as pitch here. Because I have the Stains of the Redback, so I guarantee get go again. And so I can use this to buy back the Hunter's Clave with the Pick Up the Point. And this is something that is more difficult to play around. So probably the other line would have been better damage value with the flick of Graphene Chelicera, reestablishing it. And yeah, I could have played the Pick Up the Point before. But yeah, this, I don't know, felt right in that moment. But right now I probably would have played it differently. But here we come in for 5. If my opponent doesn't block, game is actually already over. So here they didn't respect that I have another attack reaction, which was good for us. I mean, they had a Prismatic Leyline, 2 Saltwater Swells, and Elude the Hold. So they could have given me a Saltwater Swell, but seems like they wanted to end the game soon as well. But yeah, that was an interesting game. It was a fast game. And so let's take a quick look at our review of the matchup. So looking back at this game, I would say that I had an okay plan into Chum with most of the hands I had when he was on board, right? I always could have pivoted in a way that I could have killed Chum. Yes, it would have dealt significantly less damage to Gravy Bones, and so it was probably ideal the way it happened for me, but I could have killed him in any instance. And that, I think, is the important thing to really get down to and to understand. How do you kill Chum if you need to? And if you don't need to kill him, just don't. Just go face. The second thing, and that's not something that I had in the game plan at the beginning, but oftentimes it's just right to not have an arsenal, especially in situations where you know that your opponent has a ship, a Conqueror of the High Seas. You do not want to have an arsenal. Because then the Conqueror of the High Seas doesn't generate the gold. And as you've seen in this game, especially in the early game, Gravy Bones had issues because he was not able to generate the gold. He had multiple times where his cards just didn't generate the gold, and only in the later stage of that game, he was able, with Sunken Treasure and other cards, to generate the gold he needed, but then it was already too late, and Mario was in the driver's seat. Cool. So thank you very much. Please let me know what's your experience playing Mario into Gravy. Let me know if you would have played anything differently. I think there were a few lines where I could have taken a different approach. Maybe that would have been even better. But yeah, let me know if there are any questions you have. Drop them in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it would be awesome if you could do that. And yeah, looking forward to see you in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.